Well, thank you for inviting me to come and speak today. And I just have to say that PHFA, we're not endorsing or evaluating any of the programs that we're going to be talking about today. This is purely informational. We're going to give you lots of resources that you can do sort of your own checking, but we want to give you an example of sort of what's out there when, again, going through these initials, and we're all about the acronyms, so PHFA is fine, so you don't need to actually spell it out, so that's a good thing. So what are we going to do today? We're going to look at sort of a general overview of financial services. That might give us a good base from which to move forward. We're going to look at the players and permissions required for people delivering financial services. We're going to look at licensure versus certification. We're going to look at some certification requirements, and then we'll look at some common certifications, financial certifications that you might come across. So my question to you is, as we see all of these different designations popping up, which one, in fact, is not real? Or are they all real? Anyone want to guess? You can put it in the chat box. I know I have to give you a chance to actually look through all of them. But let's move ahead, and I'm going to show you which one. They're all real except this one, and we'll come back to this at the very end. Let's look at financial services. We want to look at banking, insurance, investments, and other financial services to help us start this conversation. So with banking, we're talking about where you're doing transactional accounts. You'll see savings products, maybe loans. In insurance, you have life, health, disability insurance policies, long-term care policies, property and casualty insurance, as well as annuities. Many people don't equate annuities with insurance, but it is, in fact, an insurance product. Then we're going to go on to investments. So we're looking at stocks, bonds, mutual funds, options, commodity, and lastly, we're going to look at advice. Okay, so these are the, again, products are being offered. And then look at tax preparation and financial plans. So this is sort of our realm of financial services that we're going to look at today. So let's look at banking. Let's look at the players. So we're talking about banks, credit unions, and now investment firms are actually offering banking products that are insured by the FDIC, which is interesting enough. Who are the people that we'll find in these institutions? We're going to see tellers, personal bankers that might help you balance your checkbook, loan officers, and then trust officers. So which of these people need to have permission to do what they're doing? That would be the loan officers, and they are regulated and licensed by the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities. Let's move on to insurance. Who are the players? Well, you have insurance companies like Prudential or Northwest Mutual. Banks, credit unions, and investment firms also offer insurance products. They will be in a different sort of arm of the bank or credit union. Their financial services arm is how I often see it. But banks may offer insurance products. Who are the people that sell these products? We have brokers. You might know them as agents or producers. And which of those people have to be licensed? Well, they both do, actually, and they are licensed and regulated by the Pennsylvania Insurance Department. Let's go on to investments. Who are the players? You have the investment firms like the Merrill Lynch's and the Charles Schwab's. You have investment companies, and these often are thinking of as mutual fund companies like Vanguard or Fidelity. Banks and credit unions are also offering investment products, again, sort of in their financial services arm, but you can still get these products at your local bank or credit union. Who are the people that you'll meet in these firms? You'll see brokers, registered reps, as they're known as. Basically, they're the investment salespeople, and then investment advisors. And which of these needs to be licensed to do what they're doing? Actually, all of them do. They're regulated by the Department of Banking and Securities depending on how big their business is. They might be registered or licensed by the Securities and Exchange Commission if, again, they're bigger firms. And then there's the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority that really sort of is the overseer of who's breaking the rules, and they work in conjunction with the Security and Exchange Commissions to sort of catch the bad guys in financial services. Last but not least, the other, we're talking about the players, accounting firms, tax preparation services, and financial planning firms. So who are the people that you're going to find? Well, you'll find the accountants. You'll find what's called an enrolled agent, which we'll talk about in a minute, paid tax preparers, and last but not least, financial planners. Now, which of these are regulated people? Who needs permission to do what they're doing? Essentially, accountants do. They're public accountants. They're regulated by the State Board of Accountancy. Enrolled agents, which are registered with the IRS to represent people in front of the IRS for tax preparation. And then there are paid tax preparers that actually need an identification number from the IRS, nothing more than an ID number. And then financial planners. There's lots of question marks on that because they're not regulated. And I think this is where we get into a lot of confusion and starts the whole initializing or the designation discussion. So financial planners. The term is general for any financial professional who helps people develop their strategy for managing money, investing, planning their future. So it's a very general, generic term. They can be called planners, advisors, consultants, coaches, counselors, etc. There's no standard name that they're called. And the products and the services that they offer vary. They may offer financial plans, they may offer counseling and coaching sessions, then they might actually offer financial products. Their compensation methods vary. They may work on commission if they're selling financial products. They may be fee only, which you pay a $400 retainer and you get to talk to them 5 times during the year, that type of thing. There might be a combination of both. And last, they have to have licenses if they're selling financial products like we just talked about before. So you can see like the whole concept of a financial planner can be very confusing. Let's see if we can sort of work towards clarifying that. But let's look at licensure versus certification. Having a license basically is a legal authority to conduct business. So you don't have a choice. If you want to be a public accountant, you need to be a certified public accountant by the board. You don't have a choice. You can't call yourself a CPA. Well, in theory, you can't call yourself a CPA without having that license. It's government regulated, and actually some of these licenses result in having a designation or those letters behind your name. For example, if you are a certified public accountant, you may use CPA. If you are an enrolled agent, which again is registered with the IRS to prepare taxes and represent your client in front of the IRS in the event of an audit, and then the Registered Investment Advisor, the IRA. So if you are actually giving investment advice, not suggestions of financial products, but if you're actually giving that investment advice, you have to be registered, and you can use the RIA designation. So let's look at certification. Certification is just sort of a recognition that you know your stuff. It's pertaining to a business or service, it's voluntary, and it's very often self-regulated, which herein lies part of the problem. So how do you get a license? Let's look at that first. A license takes education, an examination, experience, ethics, and maybe continuing education. There may be one or all of these criteria for getting a government-regulated license. Now let's look at what a certification requires. It also may require education, examination, experience, ethics, and continuing education. Again, herein lies the problem. It can be very confusing because not all certifications are the same. Who certifies and who watches those are the 2 questions with receiving a financial designation. You may be able to receive a designation by an independent board, so they're not tied to anything but doing this job of authorizing these certifications. You might have earn a certification through an education provider. You take this course, you're now certified. Some industry associations offer certifications as part of their, joining the association. And then in some cases, which I'll talk about in just a minute, you might have an individual that grants a certification upon someone. So let's look at some of the sample certifications that we mentioned before in the beginning. So in banking, you might find a CMB, which is the Certified Mortgage Banker, and it's provided by the Mortgage Bankers Association. Again, this is not an endorsement or a suggestion to look for these. It's just an example of what you might find in the industry. So insurance, you might see what's called a CLU, Chartered Life Underwriter, who has experience in studying life and health insurance and part of a financial plan, and is offered by the American College. Then there's this thing called the Certified Insurance Counselor, and they are those certifications are through the National Alliance for Insurance Education and Research. How's that for a mouthful? And the reason why I mention it is because even though it's not a registered, if you look at where my arrow is, if you can see that, a registered trademark, it still is it still is a valid certification. But in this case, it's actually the training and the education portion is more comprehensive than the CLU designation. Investments, you might see Chartered Financial Analyst, CFA, and that's offered or issued through the CFA Institute, as I think that Jason is part of the college chapter of the CFA. Then let's look at the others. Here's where that financial planning thing comes in. You might be a CFP, which is a Certified Financial Planner, and that certification is authorized through an independent board of certified financial planners. Then there is a Chartered Financial Consultant, again, another very common designation, and that's offered by the American College. And then the last one I have here is the AFC, the Accredited Financial Counselor, and that's offered through the Association of Financial Counseling, Planning, and Education. So why are these things all important, or how do we know about the education and about the other certification requirements? Well, there is a website which is a pretty good analyzer of some of these designations. It's called FINRA. Fast forward here. FINRA, as you can see where the arrow is, it's the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, as I mentioned before. And they offer a guide for, I don't know how many, 177, I think I counted them, 177 different financial designations. And let me just take, I'm going to show you a comparison between the two to give you an example of how they can be different. We mentioned before a CFP under the financial planners and a Chartered Financial Consultant. Again, two very, very popular designations. But even though they're very popular and many financial advisors have both of them, they do have differences. So on the FINRA website, if you compare two of the designations, you'll see the issuing organization. So as I said before, the CFP is issued by the Certified Financial Planner Board of Standards, and the Chartered Financial Consultant is through the American College. Now let's look at the prerequisites. With the CFP, you need a bachelor's degree and 3 years experience. With the Chartered FC, all you need is 3 years experience in the last 5. Okay, so you don't need the bachelor's degree. Education requirement. This is really interesting for these two programs. You have to have, with a CFP, you have to be enrolled in a board-registered program. So it's the education program is independent of the actual certifying body. But some of the other designations out there actually will allow you to sort of forego that education requirement and actually sit for the examinations. So if you're a CPA, if you're a Chartered Financial Consultant, the CLU, the CFA, you can actually sit for that exam. So the education requirement is waived. Now the Chartered Financial Consultant is 7 core and 2 elective courses. And these basically are college level courses. They can be given in person, online, self-study. The examination type, I wanted to point this out because it sort of makes a distinction between how difficult it is to get the certification. So with the CFP, you actually take a comprehensive final certification exam. So on all of the topics, again, which are the same topics that the CHFC covers, you're going to take a 1.5-day exam, proctored. You have to go to a location to take it. Now, with the Chartered Financial Consultant, all you need to do is pass the seven core courses and the 2 electives on a closed book proctored exam. So you can tell the difference between a comprehensive exam and sort of a one-on-one exam. Continuing education is important. You can see here CFP, 30 hours every 2 years. It's the very same thing with Chartered Financial Consultant. And here's some other things to look at as well. So how do you check the status of somebody with either of those designations? Here's some information to check on to see whether or not they've, their licenses, or I'm sorry, not licenses, can't use that. Their certifications are still current. There's information also about how to submit a complaint. And the one thing that I want to point out here with the last bit of information is, are the public disciplinary actions published? So that means, do you have access to see, who did some bad things and what happened as a result of that? With the CFP, there is a place to go for that information, and not for the Chartered Financial Consultants. So you can see that there are, 2, rigorous programs, and those rigorous programs for financial planners, but they do, even the top 2 do have their differences. So it's really important to sort of make those distinctions. Okay, so what's left out of all the ones that were up in the beginning? So we have RFP, RFC, FCC, and FSW. I'm going to have a couple of last words on that because there's some interesting certifications that I wanted to point out. We mentioned before Certified Financial Planner, Chartered Financial Consultant, Planner, Consultants, kind of like, the competition between the 2. Well, there's a competition between associations that actually register these 2 professional classes. And basically, these are associations, the Registered Financial Planner and Registered Financial Consultant. They're associations that provide marketing materials. They provide legislative updates. They provide, stewardship and, communication between other consultants or planners. Pretty nice. $150 a year, you can be part of this party. But you also have to have your appropriate licenses and work experience to be part of this group. Not a bad thing. It's kind of an extra add-on. But if you think about it, if you're a registered financial planner or consultant, you may think, wow, they're registered with the authorities. So you have to be very careful when sort of interpreting these designations. Another one that's interesting is the FSW. That designation is having a certificate in financial social work. Again, this is not a judgment of any programs, but you have to go through 5 interactive lessons, pay $600 a one-time fee. There's no continuing education. There's no place to find if any complaints have been registered against this. And there's actually an individual who runs this center, so to speak, and giving these sort of certifications. Last but not least, what does the FCC stand for? And I actually have a card from somebody who gave me their credentials in an FCC, and this is a completely non-religious judgment, but financial crusader in Christ, which again, you have to be careful when using things like political affiliations or religious affiliations as part of your mantra with certification, if you will. I always, and I'm a very big skeptic on certifications, and I've done some studying on what programs are better than others, but I'm always leery about anyone, again, who uses political or religious means to sort of advertise their service. I think not doing either the faith-based organization or the services really sort of any credit. Okay, so that was it. I talked a lot about these certifications, and hopefully I made a little bit of sense, didn't confuse you too much, but it really is not something that's clear and out there. I know that Hillary has provided some resources for her so that you can go to various websites and check with, for example, the Department of Banking, with FINRA, with the insurance department, to check on the professionals that you yourself are working with. And it's really, you're doing a disservice to yourself if you're not checking up on these professionals before, during, and during you're working with them. I guess you have to think about this is your money, and you want people that are helping you with your money to be reliable, ethical, and really have your best interest in mind. So I thank you for letting me have 20 minutes to give my spiel, and if there are any questions, I'm definitely open to them.
Thank you so much, Holly. I'm going to allow time for any of our participants to offer a question, but I had want to just, so a lot of our teachers, I think this is great information for them because they may not have known the difference. Curious your thoughts on sort of how much of this would you share, or what would maybe be the underlying takeaway, like at the high school level for students?
I think I would focus on having a license. I think focused on what product somebody is trying to sell to you rather than saying you have a fancy designation. I think that would be my focus. If somebody's offering you insurance, they have to be, you check them out with the insurance department. I think that would be my focus. I think for maybe a college level, sort of introducing the certifications would be, appropriate. But for high school, just know that people have to, they have to have a license to sell you these products.
I think that's great. Plus knowing, that there are government agencies maybe that, in some cases that oversee these individuals and can provide, even further vetting is important too. Certainly, a lot of times, we encourage folks to seek the help of a professional in dealing with their finances if they feel like they're in over their heads. But the last thing we want them to do is seek the help of somebody who may not have their best interest at heart. So it is a tricky balancing act, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's information out there. Do your homework. Understand, independently from the advisor, because you could ask the advisor, oh, what experience you have, and lo and behold, it'll be very good, no matter what. And I had somebody, just a side note, I had somebody tell me one time about the CFP designation versus the chartered financial consultant, and somebody said, well, they're just the same. And I'm thinking, no, you do your homework, you see they're very popular, they're rigorous, but really look into the details, double in the details. How's that? But there are resources to help you check and help you be safe with your money.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Holly. I appreciate your time with us today.
I'm happy to be here.